It is breathtaking in the brilliance of its athletes, passionate from the intensity of its competition, and elegant with its almost geometric precision. From the clean lines of the court, to the arc of the ball, to the sharp angles of the players' moves, the game of basketball played at its highest level is like a finely drawn blueprint of athletic grace, and one that clearly does not depend on language to be understood. As the NBA reaches its 50th anniversary, it has been embraced around the world with almost startling passion. But to celebrate the league and to understand its essence, it helps to know its journey. The league began in 1946, and professional basketball barely registered on the sporting map. So while the New York Knickerbockers were welcome to play in Madison Square Garden when there was an opening, if a boxing match or the circus was in town, the Knicks were relegated to play here at the 69th Regiment Armory. And that wasn't unusual. Even the Minneapolis Lakers, the best team of the time, was shuffled among 3 different arenas. And they were not only perennial champions, they also featured one of the era's most glamorous players, the 6', 10" giant, George Mikan.
One night we were walking toward the garden to get ready to play against the Knicks. And I looked up at the marquee, and there it says on the marquee, George Mikan versus the Knicks. And I said, oh boy, they shouldn't have done that. So anyhow, we got into the locker room, and the guys were really giving it to me, and there was no one dressing. And I said, all right, what's going on? And they started saying, well, you got the publicity, you're on the marquee, go out there and play them. And so they really razzed me for quite a bit, and finally they decided to come along.
It was in 1891, more than 3 decades before George Mikan was born, that Professor James Naismith invented basketball as a diversion for his students. And for its first half-century, it remained primarily a scholastic sport. Professionals played in weekend leagues and earned their keep, inside wire cages and in dance halls. But in 1946, an intrepid band of arena owners decided it was the right time to start a new league.
They were hockey promoters. Wherever they had major hockey interest and a major hockey arena, they needed something to fill some of those dates.
It was with little fanfare that the Basketball Association of America got off the ground. Its first basket scored by an unheralded New York Knickerbocker guard by the name of Ossie Schechtman.
It was a simple give and go. I made the first basket of the game. Nothing elaborate, just a plain 2-point basket. That's the way we looked at it.
But the fledgling league soon realized it needed stars to sell, and merging with the rival National Basketball League, it got the biggest in George Mikan.
Mikan was very important towards the beginnings of the game to popularize it, because they were able to popularize him as a superstar.
Mikan and his Lakers were the league's premier team, winning 5 championships in 6 seasons. But the newly dubbed NBA was still far from a household name.
Someone called me and said, "Coos, congratulations, you're the #1 pick of Tri-City Blackhawks." And I said, geez, I was a pretty good student at Holy Cross. I must have been asleep in geography. Where the hell is Tri-Cities?
I thought it was a place where they shoot people, or stop the Indians. I had never heard of Fort Wayne. I knew of Indianapolis, I'd heard of Indiana. I had never heard of Fort Wayne.
Just getting to the game in places like Sheboygan and Fort Wayne was a challenge.
The train would go all night and it'd go through. It would stop in Waterloo, Indiana. and with dawn just breaking, we climbed down onto a platform. There was no overhead to this platform, just a platform in the middle of a prairie.
We would walk over to a place called the Green Parrot, a restaurant that was over there, and you'd walk in and there'd be 4 kids that looked like Jimmy Dean, had the sunglasses on, the leather jackets, and they were there. They said, "Are you guys ready?" "Yeah." And they would drive us into the Van Orman Hotel in Fort Wayne.
And that's what all the teams in the NBA did those years.
Even the games themselves were an adventure.
Syracuse was probably, I feel, the toughest place to play in the league. If you were beating their Nats, whom they love, they would just trying to come out and get you.
Going from your locker room to the floor, if you weren't challenged 2 or 3 times to a fist fight or something, there was something wrong.
I remember a guy in Syracuse they call him the Syracuse Strangler.
He was about 5'8". He must have weighed about 250.
The Strangler was a guy must have weighed 400 pounds.
And whenever a brawl would start out, he'd go out and strangle one of the other players.
We're standing in a huddle, and he just charges it right in there. So we belted him out of there.
And when he came out of the huddle, somebody must have punched him. He was bleeding from his nose and mouth, and the fans, of course, went wild.
In spite of all the difficulties, the league's pioneers were not discouraged.
We would promote. We'd go to organizations, and we'd have giveaways, and we'd really work at it.
We would go about doing as many things as we can to draw the attention to the league. So publicity was of the utmost importance to us.
We played the Rochester Royals 18 straight exhibition games before the season began. You were begging. We were all promoting and selling a sport that we hoped eventually would be successful.
But if the NBA was to forge ahead, the game itself would have to change. To counter Mikan's dominance, teams had begun to stall, resulting in all too predictable low scores.
You go out there and you play catch all day long, and the fans are in there and they say, "What am I paying to see?"
Adding a 24-second clock, however, sped up the game and paved the way for innovative new stars like the Houdini of the hardwood.
Hi there. Bob Cousy has dazzled countless fans with his thrilling brand of basketball.
Down to Cousy. Cousy drives in, dribbles by him, and
If George Mikan was the first great star of the NBA, then Bob Cousy was the second great star in the NBA. He was the great draw. He did things with the basketball that hadn't been done before.
I certainly was aware that my style of playing was attractive to fans in those days. I mean, what I was doing 30 years ago now, every 12-year-old is doing in every schoolyard in the country. But I was getting all the attention in the 50s because I was the only one doing it.
There were other changes as well. In 1950, Chuck Cooper, Nat Sweetwater Clifton, and Earl Lloyd became the first African Americans to play in the league. But with Jackie Robinson having broken baseball's segregation line 3 years before, basketball's integration went relatively easily.
You know, athletes are athletes. You know, if you can play, they accept you. And any transition I had to make, the personality and the character of my teammates just eased that tremendously.
For the NBA, the most pressing issue was its future prospects.
Pro basketball is gaining rapid strides, and we expect soon to see it on the same level as pro football and pro baseball.
While the NBA was not quite ready to play on equal terms with its rivals, by the late 50s it had managed to gain a tenuous foothold in American sporting life, an achievement due largely to the tremendous devotion of its participants.
I jumped center and took tickets. I did everything. I was the trainer, I was this, I was that, and I was the mother to the guys, and they looked up to me, but I was good to them.
One of my guys I played with, Chuck Noble, said we played for the dumbest guys that ever lived because they didn't realize we'd have played for nothing, and we all would have.
I had broken nose, broken hands, stress fracture in the foot and things, and he just went on and played.
We were one big happy family.
How are you?
Okay, how you doing?
Your ankle.
Real good.
Morning, gentlemen. Oh, Judge.
Hello, Vic.
Bob.
Thanks, Bobby.
Oh, George.
How are you, buddy?
The writers, the broadcasters, the players, the coaches, even the owners. We were all in this thing together and all looking to make it work.
With outstanding stars such as these in the fold, professional basketball should be an attraction for many years to come.